Welcome to the official podcast of FOR ETERNIA.com. We have the power. I'm your host, AJ, aka Voodoo Magic, aka Zor. And today's episode is titled, My Name is Skeletor. A line spoken by the evil Lord of Destruction right before he kills Hordak in the Masters of the Universe Revolution episode, The Dogs of War, which really concludes two villains' journeys, one of ambitious conquest and the other of discovering one's agency. But how did fate pull these two together? Well, today, May 15th, is the day we find out, when the fantastic first issue of this new 4-issue comic prequel series, Masters of the Universe Revolution from Dark Horse Comics, hits comic book shelves and digital platforms everywhere. And today we are going to discuss this new comics genesis, followed by the contents of issue 1. And don't fret, we'll give you a spoiler warning before we do. And who better to discuss this next installment of the Revolution universe, required reading for everyone who loves those shows, than the creative gurus themselves, in alphabetical order, Ted Biaselli, Rob David, and Tim Sheridan. Welcome, gentlemen. It is an honor. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
It's an honor for me to be with these two gurus. I don't know what
I will never, ever refer to myself as a guru.
I
do that for a myriad of reasons.
Well, fill in the blank. What would you refer to yourself as, Teddy?
Hometown boy made good.
He made some good. Some
hometown boy made fair.
All right. Well, now with guests like this on at the same time, I expect hardly to do any of the talking. And you know what? That is just fine. So please never feel like you guys are going on too long, even though we have like a 45-minute time limit.
I never feel like that.
But please feel free to bounce off each other's words or energy or debate amongst yourself, because I'm just happy to sit back and enjoy the show. So please have
it. It is going to be a debate. That's good. Prime people.
So real quick, the Revolution reception, right? Are you gentlemen just thrilled as we go into this comics? Meaning critics really loved Masters of the Universe Revolution, just like they loved Revelation. But this time, even though Revelation won so many fans' hearts, including mine, passionately so, this time around, the love for Revolution feels like a consensus. It's universal, it's palpable. And fans are like desperate for more. They want more. And now you have more to give them. The next installment in the form of this Masters of the Universe Revolution prequel comic series. So have you guys just been on cloud 9 with all this?
Cloud 6. I think that there's always a place to go. I think we're relieved, obviously, right? You always go into everything with the best of intentions, and I think we all felt like we told the story we wanted to tell. We knew we drafted the lore and the backstory from everything that we've all consumed as Motu fans. And I think that when we were able to tell the story of Revolution, I think people saw what we loved about Masters of the Universe from jump. And I think it also helped put Revelation in context. And I think people started to look at it as a whole. And I think that's the best part of all of it.
It really is a whole, because that we knew where we wanted to go with He-Man and where we could go with Skeletor. And we knew that was the next chapter. That if you look at just Adam's trajectory and you're telling his story, that it felt like that was a kind of the natural progression. So we knew we were going, and it happened to also align with, what I think, fans really also wanted to see. So it was a nice thing coming together, but it is really one story.
Yeah, and the other thing is, once you start seeing that Revelation and Revolution are a whole story, I think that's when you start to realize, oh, well, there's possibility for even more story in this part of the Motu canon. I don't think we were we weren't all that surprised, because I think we by the positive reaction, right? Because
no, we were surprised by the reaction to Revelation.
Yeah.
Kind of got what we expected with Revolution.
Although, well, because we knew that we had done all that work in Revelation, so that we, everything was set up for Revolution, so that the things, to Rob's point, that fans were really talking about and looking for, we knew we were delivering, and we were going to deliver in Revolution. We got right into the action right away. A lot of people wanted to see a lot of, fast-paced, big action stuff that you really get in Revolution, but it's a product of all the work done in Revelation to sort of break down the whole mythology so we could rebuild it again and then start in this, really exciting new way.
If you think about the way the classic series was sort of done, everything is status quo. Something happens to upset the status quo. They solve it. We go back to the status quo. What we tried to do with Revelation and with Revolution is start with status quo. Everything gets disrupted. And then we move it forward about 10%, right? Something changes enough to move it forward about 10%. In Revelation, it was the knowledge of who He-Man was for the surrounding characters. I think that was the big sort of crux. And then what we moved forward was the evolution of Teela, that she is now assuming her destiny. With Revolution, started with the status quo that we ended with Revelation. The big reveal was the origin of Skeletor, what happened there. And then we end with sort of the moving forward about 10% with He-Man is now He-Man. And he does not have the responsibility or the sort of the dichotomy of having to be a ruler and a hero. He can be the hero.
And it's really important when you're changing, when you're allowing for change, right? And what they call growth, you always have to stay true to the core concepts of the material, like the foundation of it, so that it always rings true. Like, so that if we are going to reveal He-Man's true identity to the world, right, and kind of move the story needle forward on that part of the storyline, it doesn't mean that we now abandon what is the core concept of that character, which is the dichotomy of who I am as Adam versus who I am as He-Man, and how my dad sees me, my expectations for my dad in the old lore. I mean, the old show, my dad didn't see me as truly being He-Man. He admired He-Man, but he didn't see me for who I was. Well, now he sees it, but now we've just found a different way of expressing that core father-son dynamic between them. It's all about the expectations of his father versus who he is supposed to be, right? So it's just a new way of telling the same core concept to the material. And I've said this many times, but I really am a big believer that if you don't find ways to provide a freshness or new exciting story elements and surprise the audience, this thing is dead. It's just a museum piece. You just should go and rewatch the same Blu-ray collection. Is it out on Blu-ray? I don't know. It's all streaming now. I'm a grandpa of technology. You just got to get your laser disc out and watch it all again.
Blu-ray overseas, Rob. Get on that, because we don't have it here in the
But
States.
you just got to find a way. So it's really. But as long as you stay true to that core, that's what you can't ever let go of.
One of the interesting things that happened, I think, in the development of the story of Revelation and Revolution was that we started with this concept of He-Man's identity, this idea about his identity, and we, on a very surface level, having his identity revealed to people who did not know his identity before. But what it evolved into as we were crafting the story, it became really ultimately about He-Man learning about his identity and coming to understand, Prince Adam coming to understand his identity. It became all about identity. We learned about Orko, and he learned about his identity through the trials that he faced in that show. We and obviously Teela as well. And then that comes into Revolution as well. Not only are these characters still on a journey of discovery in terms of their own identity, but now we get to see also Skeletor going through that.
Yeah. And reconciling. It's all about reconciling the dualities, or even trialities. In the case of Tila, I mean, all the main leads are in some ways wrestling with the different aspects of their own selves and kind of fusing it together. And then we even kind of like double that up in terms of the magic technology dilemma distinction. Is also about finding that balance.
That's in the
opening. No accident that Zodak shows up in the end to talk about balance. Everyone wants to talk about balance. That was what we were trying to do.
It was, Rob crafted that new opening sort of monologue that the sorceress gives, and she really talks about
the final frontier.
Sorry. Yeah, really talks about Eternia being a place of those dualities, and I thought that was artfully done.
Oh.
Well, and so we're seeing now this comic book miniseries, the 4-issue Masters of the Universe Revolution prequel to the Revolution series, but also it takes place before the Revelation series, so it's a prequel sort of to all of it. But really, story-wise, this is a prequel to Revolution, because we're getting into the origins of that duality for Skeletor, and how Hordak is so instrumental and influential in that. And we saw it play out. We know what happened in Revolution, but we all thought it was important to go back. I mean, Rob especially was the one who pitched going back and getting into the details of how that relationship started and why it ends up where it does in Revolution. I think that's what's exciting about these comics. And whenever we get to do more, in this universe, we get to fill in some of the blanks, go back, live in it a little bit more. In this series, in this comic book series, we see scenes from the Revolution TV show, but we see them expanded. We see them from other angles. We learn more information than we saw where the camera was pointed in the TV show.
It's so cool.
So it's really supplemental, and it feeds the story, and it brings the world to life in even bigger and newer ways.
This being a prequel to Masters of the Universe Revolution, it really feels like almost a prequel to everything, the beginning chapter to the Revolution universe. So about this story, the genesis of it, real quick, and genesis is really apropos, actually. Can you gentlemen walk through its birth, any inspiration behind the story before we get to that spoiler section?
Money. Rob had called me up. I was at a work retreat, an offsite work retreat in downtown Los Angeles. They put us up in a hotel, and Rob was like, "I want to talk to you and Tim about a comic book for Revolution that's a prequel that sort of dives into the backstory." And they came down to downtown, which honestly is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me. True. But we did have a decent dinner, not a good dinner, but a decent dinner at the hotel. And honestly, it was about 3 hours we were down there and blueprinted the whole thing at that dinner.
Wow.
It was such a joy.
And this, and then this, and then this, and then this.
And is someone jotting this down and creating a treatment, or is this just
he had it all in his head? Rob and I sit like the Queen Marlena and Kim and dictate. And then Tim goes, okay, Scrollos over here.
He's like, I'm just going to change it anyway. I change it all. And
then goes away.
You know what's funny is you will see me. They make fun of everybody. I don't know why they make fun of me when I'm sitting there. Like,
you don't know why we make fun of you?
But when I'm taking notes, like I have to take notes because you guys, Rob and Teddy, are the kids who dump all the toys out of the toy box and are like, let's play with everything. They jump right in to like story. And I'm like, I have the worst memory in the world. It's why I'm a writer. I have to write it down or I'll forget it all. Yeah. So the thing is, Kevin Smith he doesn't write anything down in meetings. He has
all in here.
Like a steel cap. I've never seen anything like it. He made fun of me when I showed up at his house one day to work on the Revolution TV series with a whiteboard, with a marker, erasable marker. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I was like, I remember things like you. Yeah. So when we all got together, we started talking about story. I'm writing stuff down feverishly, and then I go off and write some stuff, and then they look at it and they give notes, and we start shaping the the story, and then eventually when Dark Horse is like, we got to get our artists moving on these pages, then I start delivering scripts.
It's really so. Go ahead, AJ.
Oh, well, just a quick left turn. I was thinking of you and the whiteboard, and I have a Keldor curiosity really quick. Because the way you guys handled the introduction of Keldor turned out brilliant. I mean, better than I could ever have imagined. But I was always curious, was Keldor always in the cards the whole time? Meaning when you were writing Revelation?
I'd say this, because Ted, I don't know if you remember this exactly, but it speaks to like part of the fun of this. So on Revelation, we didn't, and I didn't want to have like Keldor be part of it in the beginning, because I knew we were having the CG show, and we'd explored Keldor in the comics, but there was a moment there to say, look, this is really based on the classic coming out of the 80s. So let's have a lot of fun with that and lean into that kind of demon from another dimension. There are, at least for a moment. Now, there are a lot of fans who were like, well, where's Keldor? Legitimately, including some people like Take Teddy, but he's so patient, right? He's so patient. And then there were a lot of fans who were just like, where is it? You've ruined it, blah, blah, blah. So eventually I stopped being stubborn, and I called you, Teddy. I said, what if we bring it back and we relate to the memories? And your reaction was, oh, thank God.
Because I think what I love is I know some people don't like Keldor. Some of the fans, it's divisive that there is something that feels like revisionist history or retconning. And
I used to be one of them. I mean, I knew it wasn't revisionist history. I understand the lore in the mini comics and so forth.
Yep.
Well, it was implied, right?
It was never the implication, but I think it was, in hindsight, some of the folks at Mattel who were interviewed afterwards were always like, that was always the plan, to tie them together. They wanted to Star Wars it. And I think that when you say something like that, oh, we want to Star Wars that, I think it kind of cheapens the idea of it. It's not quite Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. There's a little Hamlet to it. There's a little, and that's honestly, when we went back and first spoke to Kevin, we love the idea that there is all this sort of like interfamily, dynasty and politics and all that stuff. Right. And that's part of what makes the drama good.
And that's Kevin and Tim, they are so good at leaning into that Shakespearean quality. So much so, not just as a writer, but Mr. Sheridan voicing, coming in and bringing his...
Jeez, I was telling Tim, I was messaging him. I was like, I had no idea when I was watching that who played King Miro. And then when I watched the credits, I went, no way. I mean, I could hear Teddy. Teddy was brilliant as Gwildor.
Oh, Teddy is insanely brilliant.
Yeah, but Teddy has all this history and voice work, and he's so fantastic. I love his Loki and superheroes.
Tim's an actor. When I met Tim, he was an actor. He was a stage actor doing Shakespeare, actually delivering incredibly rich monologues.
That's very generous. I was a successless actor. I did some national commercials. That's what I did. And I did 4 national commercials, and in 3 of them, they didn't let me talk.
But still, it's better than 99% of the actors in the world, man.
Yeah. But Rob, where was you? Where was your voice?
Oh, they won't let me play in this. Help me out here, AJ.
You could have given him Red Floor.
He's like, wait a minute. I can be Keldor. And I was like, Rob, we've got you or Shatner.
That was the only name that would allow I would let go of that bone. For Shatner, yes, that was it.
But you know what? You guys are a bunch of evil geniuses, because if this was a fabrication all this time, I felt for Skeletor's demon wife. I felt for Skeletor's demon child in those revelations.
Well, honestly, it's good that you do, because Skeletor feels it, right? It is legit. I mean, there's like, I don't know. There's something to having your own lived-in experience of truth. That's true.
Why I love this, because you guys kind of really paid respect to both origins. Or the Hatfields and McCoys, that people loved, one side or the other.
That's the puzzle. That was the puzzle that we had to solve, and so the way we reference it and talk about it in the Revolution TV show is great. It's satisfying. we tied together the demon from another dimension and the Keldor origins in a way that it seems really organic. It makes a lot of sense. It's almost like it should have always been that way. But then now getting to go back in this comic book and explain how that happened and why that happened. And to what you're saying, AJ, the feelings, the emotional connection that Skeletor has to that, his own false origin story, that those feelings come from a real place. And those emotions, it's like energy cannot be destroyed. Like, it had to go somewhere. It went into that false origin story, but it's based on something real. It's based on his real traumatic events of his life. And we're going to see some of that in this.
There's a lot of payoffs. There's a lot of payoffs and links to it, which is that was Tim sprinkled into the scripts, which are really, really clever. And I always feel like when it's important when you're doing these revelations and retcons, and as they're called, it's really important, I think, to try to keep it as streamlined as possible and grow organically out of the core concepts of the characters and the story you're trying to tell. Like, that's why I'm not as, and I know they're probably fans of this, so forgive me, but I'm not as crazy about like merging Demo Man and Keldor and things, because I feel like it becomes too complicated for me and for us. It was just like, it feels like there's an organic way of saying why Skeletor doesn't remember his true origin, because we know his origin is already linked so clearly with Hordak, and Hordak is a master of manipulation and false memories from another character who we won't name, and so we know that it's such a streamlined way of kind of threading that needle, right? And then what's also great is that it still allows Keldor to be Keldor, because one thing I love about him versus Adora, Adora is a victim, right? And Keldor chooses it, right? And so you get to do the same story, but then show two different flavors. And so you're paying homage to the horribleness of Hordak, but then you're getting two different flavors of the same thing with these two different characters. So that's the trick when you're doing these things, is try to like make it all feel.
And what's fun is with Adora, what we saw is sort of like a puppy. You raise the puppy from birth, and you train the puppy to be the dog that you want. Whereas with Keldor, it's sort of like you're taking in a stray, and then you're taking all of the experiences that the stray has, and you're channeling them and pushing them to be the direction that you want them to be. It really is a great manipulator. And I think what you see when you get into the later issues of the book is how Hordak exploits all of those lived experiences of Keldor and really uses them and makes Keldor a fully realized character and not just a cipher for Skeletor. That's really what I think Tim did so well, is he made Keldor his own character.
Well, and
don't speak, Tim. We'll speak for you.
No, I'll keep saying what you want to say.
Yeah.
That's much more articulate than I'm going to say. The other thing is that we don't just get to dig into Keldor and the psychology of Keldor and where Skeletor really comes from, what that origin is. We also are going to learn about Hordak. We're going to get some pieces of Hordak's story that explain why he is the way he is and why he feels the way he does, what he thinks he needs to do. It starts right from the beginning. His first scene in issue 1, out today at your local comic shop and online, is it's all about explaining his motivations, where he's going, what he's trying to accomplish, and learning a little bit, getting inside his head a little bit. Was a really exciting thing. Also, getting to see him on the page, drawn by the incredible Daniel HDR. There's a beautiful thing about writing these comics where, for me, I get to hear the voices of this incredible voice cast in my head when I'm scripting the dialogue for these guys. I don't know if you guys are the same way. I mean, you must be. I mean,
I can't not read them that way now. Like when I
there
hear
have been
them,
other actors, obviously great actors who've played these characters in the past. But now, to me, these voices are the Revolution cast voices. So I hear Keith David's voice.
Yeah.
I see the way Daniel HDR renders him. And, I hope that the words I'm putting in his mouth are helping to understand the psychology of Hordak, are helping you understand the psychology of Hordak and what's leading to ultimately the great showdown between him and Skeletor in the series.
Daniel is so good. We were so lucky to have him when we were looking for an artist and looking at samples of people, and he just rose to the top. And he's such a fan, and he's so passionate, and he kind of has a George Perez quality to his work that I love so much, where like the individual figures and are great on the individual scale, and then he can just expand out to cover the whole universe in these amazing double page spreads. It's really, really fortunate to have.
There may be folks who are tuning into this who are not necessarily comic book aficionados who maybe don't have a lot of understanding of the process of that. And for those people, I would say, what the artist in a comic book does, what happens is the writers tell the story to the artist, and the artist tell the story to the world. And what he's doing is not just
nicely said, Tim.
Beautiful.
Yeah, well, it was given to me by someone else. I didn't. but what they're doing is not just drawing beautiful pictures, but they do that, but they are telling a story using a format. It's sequential storytelling, and there are artists in comics who really excel as storytellers, and there are some who are extraordinarily good at it. And I think Daniel has, for me, proven just how amazing he is. He'll read my script, and then he will alter some of the panel arrangements, or he'll add in a panel here and there to help the story move along at the right pace, at the right time. That's a thing that you don't always understand when you're writing it. It's just in your brain. But someone who has an innate ability and a knowledge to tell the story the way that is going to be the most effective for the reader, that's somebody like him. And so we're very lucky to have him.
So quick couple mechanics questions, and then we'll jump right into the spoilers. Timing. The first issue of the Masters of the Universe Revelation prequel comic series kind of timed with the animated series back in July 2021. I believe the first issue actually came out a few weeks prior to the series, and capitalized on the hype. But this time around, the Revolution prequel comic series seems to have followed a different release model. Does that have something to do with keeping the inclusion of Keldor a secret?
Yes, partly, yeah.
Okay.
For sure. I mean, we definitely didn't want to, as we were very secretive about Keldor being in it at all, and then who William Shatner was playing. We definitely wanted that to be have as much of an impact when you're watching it.
So close. We got so close.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I know.
So close.
I know.
But also, I think that was the motivation originally, right? And then, and then it just becomes a thing about timing and windows and when
windows. So it's not entirely that, and then also it's a fun way to keep it going. For fans. I mean, there's pros and cons to releasing it right on at the same time or a little bit after.
Right.
The computer model said that everyone would stop talking about the TV show on May 14th. 2024. So therefore, that's why.
Are you using AI again, Tim?
We're AI.
Absolutely, the F not.
All right, and so on a project like this, do you gentlemen always go in with the intent of a 4-issue limited comic series? Is that the optimal, tried and tested model nowadays? Meaning, gone are the days of the 10 or 12 issue limited series.
I can't speak for Dark Horse, but I will speak for Dark Horse. Yeah, they have said they have said that 4 issues is like the sweet spot number for them in terms of both on its monthly release cadence, but then also when it's collected. So they have said that. I mean, DC was 6 issues. And they're 4, and it's not to say that you could in some ways create the kind of feeling of an ongoing series by just continuing it again, but they will restart it. You can do 2 4-issue arcs, and it can be one story broken into 2 chapters on the heels of each other, but they will still break them off into 4 and then restart with an issue 1. It's just the realities of the business.
I gotcha. All right, so let's finally discuss, with our 15 minutes left, Masters of the Universe Revolution issue 1 itself. And if you haven't read it yet and don't want it spoiled, I recommend, whether you're listening or watching this podcast, please press pause, go buy the issue, either physically or digitally.
Or emotionally.
Or emotionally.
You'll be paying for it one way or the other anyway, all your life.
And then once you buy it, read it, and then come back and hit that resume button, because spoilers are ahead. You have been warned. So I'm going to approach this in a quick linear fashion. Page 1. When you guys said prequel, you really meant prequel, because the whole issue goes awesomely biblical, and starts with creation, not at the beginning, but before the beginning, before time, and this is where it gets interesting for me, where there wasn't 3 gods, but only one, so to speak, one God, one magic, where it seems magic and God is sort of synonymous, and then Zor, Ka, and Havoc, that circle of birth, life, and death that you explained, Teddy, didn't exist yet. And instead, out of that magic, I guess just Zor and Ka first thrived, battled for dominance, and out of their violence bore havoc. Do I have that all straight?
You do. Keep in mind, you're hearing it from the one vantage point of the people selling havoc.
That's part of what.
No, I don't mean to throw an ambiguity. I'm just
no, but that's
that's exactly right. That's part of what's interesting about every religion, is that it's being told by the faithful. So they all have a point of view about the other ones. It's like we call it rock paper scissors, when like Havoc, Zor and Ka all have their faithful, and they all talk about those elemental moments, the big moments, from their own points of view.
Wow, I'm a knucklehead. That changes everything. That's right. I should have paid attention to those bubbles, right? It was in the black with the white text, I think.
Yeah.
You learn, I think you can figure out pretty quickly, who's telling the story.
Right.
In this issue, you figure out who it is who's telling that story in the beginning of the
But I really didn't account for that POV, so that's great that you mentioned that. And I adore this type of world building. It's so much. It must be so much fun to write. And you guys were talking about Daniel HDR. He did a great job, like illustrating that page with the three gods.
There's another final page in an issue coming up, which is it was in the script. The way Daniel put it together was so beautiful. Tim, you know what I'm talking about?
Which issue?
Well, it's the one where I'm trying to remember which number.
Are you talking about the
last page where you're seeing like 2 different.
Yeah.
All the things that we don't know about.
That's the end of issue 2, right? You're talking about the end of issue 2.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of fun to write, new Motu characters, right? And a few pages, we get just that. We're treated to this double-page spread featuring the evil Horde battle at Anwar, and we see these 2 characters that we've never seen before, and hopefully I pronounced them correctly. Tarantula. Oh, like a tarantula. All right.
Tarantula.
And Succubug.
That's right.
Okay. Rob laughing.
I'm laughing just because I love the names are so brilliant and they're so Motu, but it's even more funny when you say the name straight. And all right, so can you guys talk more about them? I mean, is like Tarantula in relation to Web Store, right? Is Succubug a tick?
She is a tick.
Is a Motu version of how a tick would be realized in Masters of the Universe, right? Tarantula was a character that I had put into the Revolution series. That there's always a million reasons why things in the writing phase sort of end up being written out. And so we didn't end up being able to use Tarantula in the show. So when it came time to have this great battle that's happening with the Horde on Anwat Gar, it was a good opportunity to get to bring Tarantula in, and also her cousin Succubug, and who basically looked like they could have been wrestling for Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling back in the 80s, as far as I'm concerned. I just felt like, we talked about this, like I just feel like there were never enough female Horde members, and also, frankly, I love the sort of body positivity of Succubug, who is perhaps gorged on the blood of her enemies, but still she is she's a full-figured Horde member. I love it. I love because that's an action figure I would have wanted. So
I'll just imagine if they convert them to figures. That'll be like a dream.
Imagine that, Rob.
I do. That'd be amazing.
Look, here's the thing. They're not the lead characters in this story. They're throughout the story. You'll see them throughout the story. Yeah. But if you're craving the origins of Succubug and Tarantula, I say write your congressman and tell them to talk to Mattel.
I love when we opportunities to add new characters to it and keep it active and fresh. I mean, like that, and like Teddy had Motherboard, things like that. It's just like, why, like that's the keeps it alive, and it's fun, and it just continues to make the world feel big and bigger than you know.
I can't wait till we kill them.
We will kill them.
Just the way Tim killed Motherboard, I want to kill Tarantula and Succubug.
We generally also try to wait until people might start caring about them, then we kill them. That's how
Rob's creation's the only ones that live.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that keep going.
I think what we need to do is do a show where in the first episode we kill Tarantula and Succubug, and then do 10 episodes explaining why they were important before we bring them back.
I think, and it's all narrated by Motherboard.
You're going to give Kevin Smith agita. All right.
We do that.
That's basically my job.
All right. So moving through was very intriguing that the Fright Zone was in the island of Anwat Gar. And
this particular way into the Fright Zone was from Anwat Gar.
Okay.
Think of the Fright Zone as sort of like a nexus point with multiple entryways in different places.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to see a different entrance to the Fright Zone in issue 2. And you get an understanding that the Fright Zone is, exists perhaps outside of normal space and time. And so once someone discovers that, it could become, a great sort of advantage. It's certainly a great hiding place to hide all sorts of things.
That's cool. So inside we find those weavers of shadow, the seers of fate. And real quick, is that just inspired by, Greek mythology, where they have those 3 sisters, the 3 witches?
Well, even more specifically, Rob, do you want to talk about it? Rob, from the first meeting that we had,
I talk about but I mentioned it by name, and I just was enjoying Tim's reaction as an actor, as a Shakespearean actor. His reaction to me saying Macbeth.
You're not allowed to say it from an actor. Just say it again and again.
I don't like that. I don't like it. No, I'm a retired actor. You can say it all you want.
So it was going for that idea of
and it wasn't just that. There's so much about these 4 issues that are connected to or inspired by the Scottish play. I still won't say it, but
I enjoy it so much.
And
that, AJ, that it's like bad luck to say Macbeth in the theater.
Yes, and it's good luck to
say
regulated. I don't get it.
Yeah. But Rob, that was a key point that Rob brought up right from the beginning and kind of kept as sort of a a guiding light throughout the creation of the story. And so there's a lot that's inspired by that. You'll see as you read, go back and read that play, and you'll see where we connect to it. But
yeah,
yeah,
we just didn't make it like Shakespeare. We took it very literally. We're like, this is gonna have, this is our Titus and John.
That's a great compliment, calling Rob a guiding light.
Well, I call him
this card, Rob.
I used to call him the Young and the Restless, but he's since gotten significantly older.
Wow.
That's it. Well done. That was it. The funniest thing you'll ever say, and we were all here for it.
And these are the days of our lives.
So, all right, we gotta move this through here. Keldor's mother, like Saren.
Like she's Karen.
She's Karen. Yeah, Saren.
That's on Eternia. They don't have Karens. They have Saren.
Saren is a
the manager.
Space Karen is.
Saren. Well, sometimes you have the Zor and the Zoar. So, all right. Saren. So she understood that technology could only take Keldor so far, and she, he needed to exceed the elders, to exceed his father. He would have to learn magic, and it's how we grow as individuals. Blah blah blah. And his father should have taught him that. So that point, Saren seems very progressive, right? And then we're shown like almost a juxtaposition where we see Keldor as a young adult, and his mother is now this ominous voice, white text on, black bubbles. And to me, it feels like a contrast of teachings, where it's less improving of an individual and more about power and seizing his birthright. So am I sensing that right? Is there something?
I love that you picked up on that from the coloration of the balloons, the telepathic balloons.
Yeah, it felt like something sinister was afoot in a way.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, I love that you got that there was a distinction, that something had shifted in terms of the way she was teaching him. I don't know. I didn't specify in the script that the balloons should be black with white text or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right about her words. Okay. She clearly is preparing Keldor for something. She believes that he has a destiny, that fate is calling to him, much in the way that Lady Mac speaks to her husband. I'm trying not to say it.
And the way Mama Rose speaks to Gypsy.
That's much better. At least that's the right relationship.
Well, it's let me jump ahead then, because when Hordak finally approaches Keldor, right, we learn through the voice of Keldor's mother that at this moment, Keldor and Saren, they always knew this would come, right? She called it Destiny's Call, which would be actually a great alternate title for the series, or even this issue. I don't think this issue had
it. That's the title of the issue.
But it is? Okay.
Yeah, we didn't.
It is. It was Destiny's Child, but Tim, I
didn't know. I wasn't aware that was
on the nose. It's a band. It's a band. They were pretty popular at one time, Tim.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
So I know I'm jumping ahead because I didn't even talk about this. But did Saren and or Keldor also do the same thing as Hordak? Did they get to the Fright Zone, go to the Weavers of Shadow, and seek their destiny, and that action ultimately locked their destiny? Or is
it sounds like you're pitching story over there. Like you've got ideas.
I'm sorry.
You're going to have to read the rest of the book.
I got it.
I think you just got to keep reading to see what all of this means and why, where this is all coming from, whose motivations are what, but I do think you're on an interesting path, I will say, AJ.
All right, so maybe I can ask this. So Hordak still believes he can change fate, right, by making sure the heir of Grayskull remains unborn at one moment, even though the future is now set, which is pretty arrogant, which is pretty Hordak, right? And then one of the Weavers seems to break the code, that these Weavers follow and impress upon themselves and show Hordak a way out to change fate with Havoc. So is that Shadow Weaver? I mean, the Shadow Weaver? Oh, I can't. To be continued. I miss
The Shadow Weaver.
But what is Teddy doing? Okay.
He's
All right.
bringing magic.
All right. Maybe maybe this spoiler idea was a bad decision. All right. So I'm just excited. This is really a great story. And before we wrap this up, because I know it's close, it's really time to go. I do have one question regarding Masters of the Universe Revolution, if I may. But before I ask, I would be remiss. I hope you guys don't get upset at me. I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't ask about, a third and final potential season to a Revolution, a Masters of the Universe redemption, perhaps, But I do know.
You pitch the title.
Well,
story,
Kevin Smith did say we'd be able to figure out in Comic-Con.
In terms of what story we want to tell in a potential third season, we've all had that discussion. We know the roadmap. We know where it's going to go. A lot of things in play. All I say to everyone is watch it. If you haven't watched it, watch it again. If you have watched it, tell a friend to watch it and buy the comic.
Yeah. And I can ask Michelle's Magic 8 Ball. Michelle owns this, right?
Where's the Motu one, Rob?
Ask again later. No,
ask again later. I don't believe that's what it said.
Look, I do know. I do know if it was green lit. I mean, you guys could have never announced it here anyway. When I asked the question, because there'll be a whole marketing plan behind it.
Correct.
And information like this should be dropped in a large venue, not here.
Correct.
So
let me be absolutely clear. If there was any news on anything like that, I would be the last to know.
Correct.
Seriously, I don't work for Mattel or Netflix. So let me just tell you right
now. It's true. Even when he gets paid, he doesn't work for Mattel or Netflix.
No, I'm just out for myself.
He hasn't worked for either Mattel.
I barely work a day in my life.
He cannot work for us.
But, could I position it this way? If it was dead in the water, it would never be green lit. Never a chance, right? I'm flipping the coin. Could you guys tell me?
Never say never, AJ.
Right. Well, I mean, I was just
never say never. Right. I've learned that in my career.
What's great is that, though, what Teddy was saying is that, there's excitement. There's a lot of people who do want to see more stuff. But that's what's so great about what Mattel and Dark Horse let us do and making these comics. There's more story. There's more ways to learn more about these characters that ties into all the stuff you already love about Revolution and Revelation. So pick up the comic book. I am sure there are going to be more comic books coming that fill in stories and we learn more about all these great characters.
That is a pro, ladies and gentlemen. That's a pro right there. And but he's completely right about that. I mean, the storytelling was overflowing from the shows, and there's so many ways we're going to be experiencing Masters of the Universe between TV and comics and video games and a movie and everything. So it's buckle up.
All right. So that last question about Masters of the Universe Revolution, and then we're done. We'll wrap it up as I promised. And it might be a very brief question. And I'm going to shine the proverbial light in your eyes when I ask this, like all good detectives do. Gentlemen, who killed King Randor?
You're going to get two very different answers from Mr. David and myself.
Well, and Tim, I think, is aligned with me, I think.
They're fighting for my love. Let's go.
Yeah. And maybe Kevin might be aligned with you, Teddy. So we'll have to. You're getting a civil war here, right on.
Hang on a second. Randor? You say Randor?
Yeah.
Yes, Randor.
Rob and I had a philosophical disagreement about this, and to be perfectly honest, not resolved. Resolved.
Yeah.
There was a thesis that I had that not everything in life and death needs to be tied into a battle, a betrayal, some sort of, machination from something bigger or evil. That on Eternia, these people are still mortals, and that death is a part of living, right? That it doesn't have to be something devious at hand, but we can give Randor a noble death, one that embraces the fact that part of life is dying. That was my point of view. Somebody just lost his mother. It was very much in my headspace about this kind of thing. I was all about that. Like, it doesn't have to be Hordak planted something that did something that and Motherboard could just take advantage of the moment, right? That there was a plan for something like that, but Motherboard took advantage of the moment. I also recognize that this is Masters of the Universe, and that there is a component of this that is that.
Teddy, I love that. I think that's great. Rob?
I love that too. I mean, because because one of my favorite moments in any movie is the death of Pa Kent in the Donner Superman, because there's something. So after his whole speech about you're not here to score touchdowns, and the idea that with all Superman's powers he couldn't even save him, and that there was something inevitable about that, and there's a humility to that, things you can't change. And then that's why it's so dramatic when he turns back time, when his other father says you can't turn back time. I digress. We're not talking about Superman, are we? So I actually think that is profound and beautiful. There's just something to be said sometimes for, I think we could have some of that, but then trying to smooth over some of the plot mechanics of coincidences or I'm not criticizing our own thing because it's brilliant. The whole thing is brilliant, but also finding ways to make your bad guys even. I love it when your bad guys are playing chess with you and they're 8 steps ahead.
Yeah.
Here's
you guys introduced stage 3, right? And we don't know what stage 1 and stage 2 of the Keldor deception is.
Right, and the fact that his brother mentions a brother on his deathbed, like why all these things are kind of like, where is that coming from? And I love stories where my favorite, I mentioned this before, but like Born Again, when Kingpin is literally can just dismantle Matt Murdock's life, and you don't know that.
Not to.
Yeah, and there's just something. It just so, but it can go either way. And the
Here's
beauty
what I'll
of
say. When we get to another chapter, we will clarify once and for all by that point. And the next time you see one of us, if Rob has a broken leg, you'll know who won. If I have a broken leg, you'll know who won.
I guess if it's Mendor, I know Rob won. It's King Hiss.
This is interesting because this is a lot like our story meetings where, if Rob and Teddy have a sort of difference of opinion, it would be up to Kevin or, or in this case, me to say the following, which I think is entirely true, which is that what these two guys are saying, those things are not mutually exclusive.
There could be a path together that unites, and that's how the good things come.
Yeah, there's this is what I mean about solving a puzzle. That's our job as writers and creators. We hear that, okay, we get 2 different notes from the executives. Let's figure out how do we make the demonic origin from another dimension and the Keldor origin both be the same thing and work the same way. Yeah. So I actually think what you guys are saying is actually you're not in disagreement necessarily. I just think it's in this telling of the story. How do we realize both of the things you're saying? I think it's possible.
But the answer to your question, AJ, is it is yet to be determined.
Okay. That's right.
Okay. As all things are with Masters of the Universe.
To be continued.
But I just want to say before we go, I hope you can just see it's such a joy working with both of them and Kevin too. Like it really is it's like we're working, but we're playing. It's like a play date. It really. We're just having a lot of fun, and we're just, we're all a bunch of knucklehead friends who love the excuse that this gives us to hang out and do this thing together.
To that end, keep watching the show, keep buying the comics, so you can let us all hang out with each other.
Thank you for paying for our play dates.
And Rob, I don't know how you keep it straight. I'd be like with Tim with the whiteboard, because you got that DC Comics universe in your head, and the showrunner for the CG show.
I am like, I just wing it and just try to stay quiet.
He's
and not
so schizophrenic. He wrote this 12-year-old Duncan into Revolution, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
All right. So that went fast, but I still think I tortured you three enough. So
we'll come back. There's plenty more to talk about.
There's 3 more issues to come.
I'm going to take you up on at least the last issue, gentlemen, because this was fun. Now, do you guys have anything to add or touch upon or plug anything before we close it out and tell everyone to buy this awesome comic?
Green Lantern,
yes.
Yes, next week, the finale to my Alan Scott, the Green Lantern series with DC, that'll be out. So that's
critically acclaimed series.
To quote Jeff Johns, the definitive Alan Scott story.
And
Avatar, The Last Airbender on Netflix.
Didn't Jeff create Sir Laserlot?
He did.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
The creator of Sir Laserlot.
He did. I love it.
We'll have to find a place for Sir Laserlot in the future.
And Hot Wheels Let's Race.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that show is killing it.
Yeah, it's doing pretty good.
It's doing great.
And I saw them announce a Matchbox movie. So
yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So that's a wrap all. We would like to thank Tim, Rob, and Teddy so much for joining us today. You three have been an absolute pleasure. Just an honor to have you on. And I know, Teddy, you're on cloud 6. I'm on cloud 9. So,
AJ, you're the best. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure.
I couldn't even tell that you're so high on drugs right now.
Oh, we didn't even caveat that. Guys, I had my wisdom teeth pulled out. It's prescribed drugs.
That's great. It's such a pleasure. And
I'm on
you.
Skeletor blood coffee because mornings are pure havoc.
Yeah. I've been doing just liquid death over here, which, by the way, I only started drinking. Kevin Smith always has this stocked at his house, so I was always at his house.
Yeah, it's actually good coffee. I was very impressed. So, all right. So now, if you haven't already, today's the day. You can read the next installment of the Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution Universe installment, right? And if you're a fan of what you saw in Masters of the Universe Revolution, what do you got there? Do you have the actual?
Can you see it? That's the digital.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought you had the actual comic in your hand.
No, they haven't sent them to me. So.
Okay. So if you're a fan of what you saw in Revolution, then you're not going to want to miss this series. And it all starts today with issue number 1 on comic book shelves and digital retailers everywhere. Don't wait for the trade. Don't miss out. Support this comic. Now, if you enjoyed the show, please show us your support by liking and subscribing to our streams. You can also drop a line by sending us an email to foreternia@gmail.com. We love the feedback. And as always, please visit us at foreternia.com for all the latest updates and news, as well as links to our social media pages that help you stay up to date with all of the Masters of the Universe Revelation and Revolution content. So that's it. I want to thank you all for listening, and let the power return. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.